The best is yet to come, and babe, won't it be fine?
You think you've seen the sun, but you ain't seen it shine.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Ask the Treksperts. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
And I'm Brandon.
Well, hi Brandon.
Hey.
Brandon just showed up, here he is.
Beam me in, Captain.
Brandon, welcome back to Ask the Treksperts.
Good to be back.
Do you know things about Star Trek?
I know plenty about Star Trek.
Good.
Not as much as I like, but I know a lot.
Well, that's okay. We're all here to share our knowledge and learn. Today we are furthering our series on characters, and we're doing another character spotlight. So as we did with the first one, we only one of us knows what character we're going to be talking about. So these two are completely unprepared, and I'm only prepared in the sense that I picked something. So Sarah on the first of these picked Riker. We talked about Riker for a while, and today I picked something that Sarah and Brandon, somebody that Sarah and Brandon both know something about. And before we get started, I'll put a little bit of time on the clock, and I want you guys to guess who you think I probably have picked.
Okay.
What do you think, Brandon?
I'm going to go with Berlin Hot for Rasmussen.
Okay, what do you think, Sarah?
Kai Wynn.
Kai Wynn! No, I probably wouldn't have brought Brandon on for this one if we were doing Kai Wynn. He'd have like a couple episodes to go to, and that'd be about it.
And only the ones I've seen recently.
Just recently, yeah. I decided to throw you a slight curveball and do a character spotlight on Reginald Barclay.
Okay.
Oh.
Reginald Barclay is who we're talking about today. So we've got 20 minutes on the clock, and we will just go through the series, the couple series he's in, and just talk a little bit about what we think about what was done with him. I want to lead with, part of the reason I picked Reginald Barclay is because I think he's fascinating in that he is a recurring character that most of the episodes he's in are Barclay-centered episodes, where like he's kind of the star of that episode. He gets a character arc, and they get away with it because even though he's a guest star, he plays kind of like main cast, and he's sort of like Guinan, where you although he's not in nearly as many episodes as she is, I don't think, but where we kind of start to think about Barkley as main cast.
Yeah, I always thought of him that way.
The farther we go. But part of the reason I decided to pick him is because he gets more character dimension and more evolution than the majority of that cast.
Especially by
Yes,
Voyager,
he
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, yes.
But even in TNG, I mean, like he's, all the way through that series, he's always kind of shy and uncertain and reserved, but we continue to get him more and more out of his shell.
Well, I think
especially
so much is done
between
with
his
him
first
in his
2 or 3.
episodes. I mean,
Yeah.
he goes a long way from Broccoli all the way to the nth degree, where he's kind of god of everything.
Yeah, and
That
you
was
get
such
to
a
see the
great
other
He'll
side.
change
episode.
you.
Yeah, you get the
Yeah.
flowers for Algernon.
Yeah.
Thing
Oh
with
man,
him.
you totally got, that's the right
That's
analogy
exactly what it
for that,
is. Yeah. But there's no way we're not thinking of that when we write that episode.
Yeah.
I would assume. But what's interesting about
Yeah, funny Barkley's got to be the Algernon.
And afterwards, they have the Treaty of Algernon.
The Treaty of Barkley.
Yes.
What's interesting about what you said is that very often we'll kind of regress characters in just Star Trek at large, besides DS9.
You mean
a
like
lot
when
of
they
the
turn him
time.
into a spider?
Well, no, not that,
regression.
not that sort of regression. I don't mean de-evolution. I know I used the word evolution earlier, but I don't mean de-evolution.
The evolution and de-evolution of these characters.
But TNG was more or less about having a particular status quo that we're not allowed to monkey with too much, right? And we tell a lot of kind of standalone stories inside of a context, inside of a status quo, and every now and again, like with some of the Klingon stuff, we'll kind of, there'll be something of an evolution and a continuation. But by and large, and this is one of the reasons I think that you like TNG so much, we don't have these really drastic character changes. And I've heard people argue, but what are you talking about? Picard is such a different character by the end than he is at the beginning. But how much of that is actually Picard learning and growing? Some of it is. But how much of it is that? And how much of it is reinvention?
Yeah. Well, I have to confess, I love shows that have a magic reset button at the end. The next episode should just be, these are the characters we know and love.
Is it just because you're comfortable with it, or you don't want people to change to the point where you just don't feel like they're who they were when you started with?
I think it's both.
Because
there's so many shows I've seen where, especially more recent shows where we have the arcs that encompass seasons and series, and I love a character and I love a character, and then all of a sudden they change, and for the last 3 seasons I can't stand them.
Well, the example that I always go to when you and I talk about this, and I know who you're thinking of when you say that, is Wesley, Wyndham Bryce, and Angel.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the big ones.
And I mean, like his character evolution is fascinating, and I'm not sure you would even argue that it's not fascinating.
It's hard
it's
to
just,
watch.
But it's supposed to be. But you don't care because it's not entertaining for you because
Yes.
you like who that guy is.
Yes. And he shouldn't turn into a psychopath that steals babies and throws them into demon dimensions. Just saying.
And yeah, well, it's.
And dates crazy people.
And we don't want to stay, and kidnaps girls and buckets, and well, we don't want to. I don't want to dwell on a different series. I'm just,
Yes.
but
Well, it's one thing to flip a switch on a character. It's another thing to grow with that character. Like,
yeah, but Sarah doesn't even like it sometimes when we do that. Like with the example we're giving with Angel, that's not a light switch thing. It's
Okay.
it's done
an
organically.
evolution,
She
but
just
it's
doesn't
just-
like that they did it.
Yeah, I
Gotcha.
like.
It's a taste thing.
Yeah, I like the Gilligan's Island model, where every episode you know they're not changing.
So you want your dramas to also be sitcoms, and we're talking like old school sitcoms.
Yes.
a sit drama.
Basically.
Yeah.
So, but that's just a matter of taste, and it's not that I don't like archy shows, but I prefer the characters that
A
reset.
drom-com.
So,
Yeah.
but I do like Barkley and the way that they take him in the series.
But that's because he's so one note if you keep using him exactly the way he was, right?
Yeah.
And even in his first appearance, he's already gone through enough of the character arc that and come, become a little bit more comfortable with himself and with, kind of his lot in life and the difficulty he has with socialization. That if you just always went back to where you were at the beginning of that episode, you're just retelling that story over and over again. So there has to be at least some incremental progression. So I like that we keep making a lot of Barkley stories about the psychology
Yeah.
of that character, but we keep kind of exploring some different facets of it. And you get to Nth Degree, and there is this wonderful progression where it's been a couple seasons, and now he's like acting in front of people, and he's still not comfortable, but he's not obnoxious. People like him now.
Right.
Yeah, and people accept him for who he is despite his social awkwardness.
He's more a part of the
And they're
crew.
more encouraging.
More part of the crew than, say, just a lowly gopher.
Yeah, and a nuisance.
Yeah.
Well, he was never a gopher. He had a place. He had.
Well,
I mean,
he did,
was,
but I mean, it's almost as if he was a gopher. People are like, we don't need him around for much of anything.
No, it wasn't that so much as they didn't want to have to interact with him because he served a purpose. He was always one of Geordi's like top engineers. The reason he was there,
that's
the
true.
reason he was, he's on that. You can't buy Barkley being on the flagship if he doesn't have some kind of extraordinary skill.
Right. He's a great engineer.
And when I first saw what is his first appearance? Why can't I think of it? Hollow Pursuits. When I first saw Hollow Pursuits, until I got to that point, that was my big question. Where I was like, well, if he had such a difficult time communicating and interacting with people, what is he doing on the flagship? And we don't really get a lot of this in that episode, but afterwards, when you get to Realm of Fear and Nth Degree, you start to find his strengths and what he's really capable of.
Yeah. Well, and I think always the idea was that he was very brilliant and good at what he did, but his own inadequacies got in the way, and so other people weren't always able to see what he was
His
doing.
perceptions of
And-
his inadequacies.
Yeah.
Well, and that's believable and it's relatable because so many brilliant people are that way.
Yeah.
And I mean, you run the risk of it being a stereotype, but sometimes, we a lot of stereotypes are there because there is often some kind of truth to them. So,
Well, look at Mark Zuckerberg
so
on
what-
Facebook. He's as odd as they come.
So what we have to do, with them is we have to make him a three-dimensional person where we're not thinking about the stereotype and we just believe that, and then maybe subconsciously we're realizing it's relatable because against so many people that are brilliant and have that, don't know how to express themselves.
Yeah, and it's nice to see him, how his interactions with the crew change over time, where he's very awkward at first, and then he gets comfortable hanging out.
He gets more assertive over time too. He can finally say, "No, I need to do this. I want to do this." But he also still gets. It's as if he put his insecurities into being overabsorbed into his work too. He kind of shifted his focus a little bit.
Well, and it's never light switchy with him. Where when we get into Voyager and we get into Pathfinder, we've got this guy who, when he's in his element, is pretty assertive.
Yeah, he's on fire.
But once things aren't going his way, he reverts back to the stuttering, incompetent, unsure of himself kind of person. And again, that's really believable.
Yeah. And
like,
he's still easily obsessed.
Yeah.
And he's still...
And a bit of a hypochondriac
exactly.
about transporters especially.
I could sit here and name you guys half a dozen or more, well, probably more, maybe even a dozen, like, main cast characters throughout all of the Star Trek series that we wouldn't have nearly as much to say about as far as the psychology and personality traits and evolution of the character. It's really fascinating. Like compare him to somebody like Wesley, not Wesley Crusher. Wesley Crusher is more interesting than even Beverly Crusher.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if we were to do a spotlight on Beverly Crusher, it wouldn't because she's interpreted differently by different people when she's written, and but isn't that really interesting? I mean, like, we can sit here and name off a bunch of people that are in almost, if not every episode of a show, and we would have less to discuss about who they are and what they become.
I would gather to say that it's actually harder for you to pick 5 people who have character progressions similar to Barkley's.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's kind of the inverse of that.
I always saw Barkley as a character that was, and I don't know how much truth there is to this, but it comes off this way, as a character who was invented to address a thing that we never really think about with Star Trek, which is that, almost like a Lower Decks thing or something, where you've got these pockets of different aspects of Star Trek that aren't really addressed very much, but have to be there. Where it's like, with for instance, this is a slightly different thing, but for instance, with Lower Decks or like those kind of like red shirt type characters in Voyager, we had that one token episode where Janeway took all the antisocial characters and took them off into a shuttlecraft.
Yeah, and then something happened. Of course.
Where we address that because it's like, well, what about these people? Barkley, I felt like was a character invented to directly address the fact that everybody in Star Trek feels really confident and sure of themselves, and they can't all be that way.
Yeah.
And it's like you've got this perfect future where, especially with TNG, where Roddenberry had the mandate where everybody had to get along, and we couldn't really have a lot of interpersonal conflict. So you have this perfect future where everybody gets along, and also nobody really has any insecurities, or at least not very many, unless you're a child, or unless you're an old person who doesn't like children.
Indeed.
I love how you said that, because that's a Picard thing. Indeed.
But I always also found it interesting that Barkley sort of assumed the role of the Star Trek fan in the middle of...
Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
Because he's just kind of there, and he's in awe of everybody. And he's kind of this outsider, going in and taking it all
That's
in.
a fantastic point. I never thought of that.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
That's how I always thought of him. Like, he is just the fan of the show, going in and being part of the crew.
Let's talk a little bit about Dwight Schultz, because you're a big fan of the A-Team.
Yeah.
And that's part of why
Magic Reset button.
That's part of why I wanted to use him for one of these, because I knew Sarah would have some interesting things to say about Dwight Schultz. First of all, were you at the convention where I met Dwight Schultz? I can't remember.
Yeah.
I thought you were there.
Met Dwight Schultz?
Oh, yeah, I got his autograph
that.
up in the Star Trek room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And
cool. We got our picture taken with him, but I don't know if I have that anywhere. I'm not sure where it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Dwight Schultz, that was one of my favorite conventions, because Dwight Schultz was telling the story about how he was talking about A-Team. Back then, I didn't know anything about A-Team, but Sarah's like, yeah, A-Team, talk about A-Team. Where he was talking about how on the set, nearly every day Mr. T would walk around and eat an entire pie. And I just thought that was like the best thing ever. But anyway, so Dwight Schultz played a character...
Yeah, Helen Mad Murdoch.
Helen Mad Murdoch.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because these are both characters who are kind of out of touch and antisocial and don't know how to get along with people.
Yeah, and just kind of out there and spastic, and especially on the 18, crazy.
Spastic's a good word for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's crazy in that show. He's playing a crazy person, and in TNG he's playing somebody who is out of touch who could maybe go that way if he doesn't have the right guidance and influence.
Yeah, good thing he hung out with Counselor Troy a whole lot.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
And it's also a good thing that Troy found his holodeck program where there is a version of Troy that's all into him, because that would have remained very unhealthy.
Yes.
Yes.
Indeed. But yeah, I think he's a great actor, really good
yeah.
the roles, and especially when you have the just kind of wacky, off the wall sort of characters, he's just really good at that niche.
Can I share my cool Dwight Schultz Easter egg story really quick? Okay, I don't know if I've told you this, Sarah, but I have told Cap this. I was watching the new A-Team movie, the latest one, and when I saw it for the first time, and there's a part where Murdoch is in the insane asylum, and that is the point where Dwight Schultz cameos. And it's almost unrecognizable as one of the scientists in the lab coat studying the crazy people. But as the A-Team van is coming towards this facility to break him out, they are watching the intro to the original series, the A-Team, on the projector, and it's listing the actors' names. But at the point where it's supposed to say Dwight Schultz, instead it says Reginald Barclay.
Oh man, I'll have to watch that again.
It is
because
awesome.
I remember that scene.
But I think you picked that up in the theater and even pointed it out to
It's
me while we were
been
watching
a
it.
while since we've seen it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was good
It's
stuff.
great.
I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah.
But that speaks to how kind of sad it is that Schultz didn't do a whole lot else, right? Or there's not a whole lot else that he's known for. Not that I've looked into what he's been doing lately, but like that's the two big things that he's known for. And
have we done a Schultz-a-thon?
Yeah, we did that several years ago in Star Trek. But what's interesting is that he's one of those really super recognizable characters that's only in like 7 or 8 episodes. And I feel the same way about him that I do Jeffrey Combs, that it's kind of a shame that he didn't get to be main cast at some point.
Yeah.
But the difference is, with Jeffrey Combs, he could have been main cast playing anybody because he played so many different characters. You would have wanted Dwight Schultz to get to play Barkley, and I will submit Barkley could have been a main series character.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if we had gone beyond, if we stayed in 24th century past Voyager, there was, it would have been a natural progression, right? Because we kept doing stuff with him. He's in 3 episodes. Yeah, he's in 4 episodes of Voyager if you count Endgame.
Yeah.
I think it's funny. There's 2 where he's playing just Barkley, and then there's that really super weird one where he's playing that hologram version of Barkley.
I was gonna
that never
say,
made any kind of sense to me.
But I was going to say, can I mention that
episodes.
for a second? I will say this, speaking to Schultz's acting ability, his version of the hologram, his overinflated egotistical self that's been built into this thing, I love how he plays that.
Are you talking
based off of his character? It's just in a very much exaggerated Barkley character.
Yeah. Although I think you're talking about that. Oh no, actually, that's like even maybe a 5th episode. I forgot about that. I think you're talking about the season 7 episode
Where the Ferengi took over.
Yeah, that's not what I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, you may forget this. I think it's season 3.
Brandon was thinking of.
I think it's season 3. Nobody ever remembers this episode. Every time I bring it up, and I can't remember the name of it, every time I bring it up, I have to describe it for people. Nobody remembers this episode.
Right.
There's an episode where Barkley shows up as a aberration kind of to the Doctor, where he is claiming to the Doctor that he's actually at Starfleet headquarters, and that
his matrix is degrading.
No, listen to me. That he's Zimmerman.
Yeah.
He says, but not that his matrix. That the Doctor is actually really Louis Zimmerman, and that he needs to and that he's trapped in the holodeck, and that he needs to kill the Voyager crew in order to get out of it.
I vaguely remember this.
Yeah,
and that he believes he's the Doctor.
What was the reason behind that? I thought the reason was that his matrix was degrading on Voyager.
I don't remember what the reason was, but anyway,
I do remember that episode.
So that was. But that whole thing was really strange. But nobody ever remembers that.
But now that you mention it, I totally remember that.
And they just used. I guess they just used Barkley for that because he was popular.
But it might have been interesting.
Yeah.
Rather than just using Barkley for the couple episodes in Voyager, wouldn't it have been kind of cool if they had actually gotten him stuck in the Delta Quadrant? It might have livened up that show a little bit.
Oh, I think that's a really good point. Yeah.
Just actually had somebody we know and recognize, and who actually has character and personality.
Well, you've got. I mean, the difficulty with that, of course, is you want your show to sort of stand apart from what you've had before. I mean, like DS9 did it in using O'Brien, but O'Brien was such a background character most of the time. He had the Wounded, where he actually got to do stuff, but by and large, he was kind of a background, press buttons kind of character.
Yeah.
But
ancillary.
But they did that a lot with DS9, where they would bring in TNG characters, and I would imagine with Voyager they were thinking, yeah, let's not do that again.
I think it was a missed opportunity.
Although we didn't have Worf in DS9 yet by that point, when Voyager started.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, but that's a really good point. I mean, we could have done that. I think that would have immediately bolstered ratings for that show, just because there's a character people were invested in right away.
Mm-hmm.
That people had grown with,
yeah.
so to speak.
I think it would have helped make the first couple seasons off to a quicker start.
Would you have made him the main engineer?
Maybe not main, but I think he could have been up against B'Elanna Torres. I mean, just like right under her.
Yeah, I think he immediately would have had to like he might have started to become exactly what you sometimes don't like, Sarah. Like he would have had to have become even more assertive and not exactly what he is, because or at least if we did the show the way I always felt like we should have done Voyager, where dealing with Maquis and stuff, wouldn't he have had to have immediately toughened up?
Maybe, or he could have regressed.
Yeah, I'm going with he could have regressed, especially if B'Elanna had come down hard on him.
That could have been obnoxious.
Yeah.
Yes. But
I mean, not only do you have to put up with Neelix's antics, but now you've got
they'd be best friends.
But now you've got this guy, yeah, right? Like, I don't know. So that's not what I would have done with it.
They could go a different.
I would have had, but I'm
so
like,
then
all I'm
it
saying is Voyager should have been a
Brockley.
darker show than TNG, more or less, and he would have either been obnoxious, or he'd have to kind of toughen him up a little. I always liked the idea that he becomes as obsessed with Voyager as he used to be with the holodeck. And, I mean, what they did with him, I thought was cool. And it's not really fair to say a couple random episodes, because there's even a progression with him in those.
Yeah, he loves simulations.
No, absolutely. I'm just saying, I always wanted to see more of him. Even in TNG.
Okay, well, imagine this. Okay, say he was in Voyager. Imagine the episode of Tuvix as like Barklix.
I don't want to, though. But this is a character that was so super popular they felt the need to give him a cameo in First Contact. And once again, it would have been nice to maybe actually give him stuff to do in a movie.
Yeah.
Bring him in and not even just be a cameo.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I think he could have been given more
He
to do. And
feels as weighty as main cast.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason
he has a weight to him.
Place.
He has an air about his acting presence is weighty. That's the best way to describe it.
If I had my druthers back in the day before Enterprise, what I would have done is I would have had a series where, and I'm not saying put together a bunch of dream one shot or semi-recurring characters. You'd want some characters for a series that you've never heard of before, but I would have put Barkley on a ship with Shelby.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
That would be neat.
That's what I'd do. I'd have Shelby be the the first officer, like she was in Peter David's series with Calhoun, or even give her a ship. Mm-hmm. There's no reason Shelby couldn't have been another female captain with a ship.
Shelby would have gotten there fast too.
Well, yeah,
as ambitious as she was.
Yeah, honestly, she should have been. Oh, unless you make her like Riker, where she finds a ship that she loves and just can't bring herself to leave it, so they give her they try to get her to take a ship 6 times like they did with Riker.
They're passing you up, Will.
But yeah, you take a couple more characters like they did with, and I mean O'Brien was a show genius.
Yeah.
But you take a couple more characters like they did with O'Brien, and that are kind of fan favorites, or just characters that are really interesting, and you put them in a show and you give them more dimension.
Yeah.
I have talked to a lot of people about the character of O'Brien, people who I know are into Star Trek or at least have a passing interest, and I think he's underrated most of the time. Like some of my other friends they're like, I didn't really like him in Next Generation. I'm like, are you kidding me? I really enjoyed him personally.
Well, he's not memorable there most of the time unless you remember the Wounded. Mm-hmm. Like the only way you would really have a lot, like O'Brien's not super memorable until you watch DS9. Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe that might be part of why, because I've seen several of his DS9 episodes.
I think that back in the day there were there were people that for whom he was a fan favorite, but you get a lot of fan favorite characters in shows like that where it's like I love what little we've seen of him and now I'm fixated on him and I want them to do more with him. Mm-hmm. You can't expect everybody to have that with a character that we haven't done very much with.
Yeah. You see the potential, but maybe not other people do.
Yeah, or you see the potential of the actor beyond the character. You know, like a kid. And I may do this down the line. I almost picked Geordi today, and that's one of those characters where I can't decide how much I actually like the character over just
the actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just LeVar Burton.
Yeah, he has a couple episodes that are just kind of awkward. Just as
he's really likable, but then I start trying to really describe him, and it can become somewhat problematic.
Yeah.
Geordi's one of those characters that started out way different from when he's sitting at the con all the time before he's chief engineer. He started out very much different than he ended up, and I can't remember if that was a switch or a progression.
I don't agree with that. I don't think he's really that different of a character. I think it's just now he has a real job, or not a real job, but now he's in charge of something. Like before he's just driving the ship, and now he's in charge. Now he's in charge of engineering. Yeah,
I'm remembering the one line about a 5 o'clock bogey in particular.
Yeah, but that's just silly writing of first season TNG. You can say that about every single character in the first season because they all have stupid things to say. I mean, all you're reacting to is people who have stupid things to say.
Maybe so.
I think.
Maybe so.
I don't know that he's written all that. Data is a completely different character.
But his is all progression.
No, it's not.
You don't think so?
Worf changed immediately when they started giving him more than 2 words per sentence.
Yes. No. I think with Data, we're jumping all over the place now, but we'll finish up here in a second. Brandon, I think there is progression with Data, but I think early on he has the same thing as Spock, where it's he's not sure how much emotion he should play yet. So when you look at the pilot, he's got a lot more going on in his face. He seems a lot more like Brent Spiner, and then as it goes along, he starts becoming more and more robotic. Mm-hmm.
You're right about that.
So there's actually there's what it is. The distinction is there's an acting progression where he's becoming comfortable with the character and figure out who the character is, and then after they figure that out, then there's a progression of that's actual character progression.
Gotcha.
And I think that is true of most of those characters. That's true of Picard. It's only true of Riker in the sense that they just started letting Jonathan Frakes act like Jonathan Frakes. That's all that was. That wasn't even him. That wasn't even him figuring out who the character was. That was the producers figuring out what his strengths were as an actor and going, oh, okay, anyone could play this role right now. And I think Picard was really similar to that too.
Yeah. So to that point, then the strengths of Barkley would be that he kind of had a smooth, even progression through the whole thing. It started out and it just kind of went from there. He was sure of that character when he started that character. Mm-hmm. So he done good.
Well, everybody, thanks always for watching. We sure appreciate it. And we will see you again next time. If Brandon's not with us next time, Sarah will pick again. And I don't know if you have anybody in mind yet.
I have several to choose from.
Yes, you do. What we'll do is we'll pull out our big bin of action figures, and then you'll just pull out an action figure.
And nice. I will get Seska. No.
Oh, if we go random.
Seska.
What Wouldn't it be great if we went random like that, and then you'd have videos that were like 3 minutes long? We're like,
Now, you don't have a lawn suitor, do you?
Porta?
yeah. Whoa, I don't know. I don't know if they made that figure. I'm not positive if they made a lawn
Well,
suit
if they
figure.
didn't, I'll 3D print one at some point.
Vreenak.
Vreenak did not get an action figure, but he should
Was it
have.
Senator Vreenak?
You want Senator Vreenak?
Senator.
Yeah. Because you want the it's a fake guy. You want.
It would have to have the button.
He has to come. It's not a button. What are you talking
No,
about?
he has to come with a button on his back that you can push so he can.
So he goes.
Oh.
He'd have a gimmick. Is what
Yes.
you're saying. It would be because the prop he'd have to come with. Of course, those things always came like 7 things, and they were all the same color. He needs to come with the optolytic data rod.
Yeah, and it'd be maroon.
The maroon opto. What a maroon.
And he would have
No,
so
that's-
he'd have the data rod, and he'd have a phaser that was constantly firing.
That's great because there's like a symbolic thing to it being maroon because Cisco was hoping he would be a maroon, and then it turned out that he wasn't, and then he was smarter than that. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, folks. We sure appreciate it. We'll see you again next time in 2 weeks on Ask the Treksperts. I'm Captain Logan.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Brandon.